Hey, how are you? Welcome to another 10-minute talk about comics. My name is Patrick, comic book creator for a number of years now, YouTuber for 4 days. It's a process, bear with me. I work in a lot of different things. One of the things I've worked in for a long time is music. There's been a talk for a long time about the necessity of labels. Are we in a post-label moment? And I think the answer in music is largely yes, with some caveats. In comics, there's now the conversation, are we in a post-publisher moment? Is this an era where we no longer need publishers at all? And I just quickly wanted to discuss the basics of publishers and why you might opt for one over another, what these things mean. I'm not a lawyer, and obviously you should consult one, but I've been around the block a little bit, and I wanted to make this entry level. I understand that many of the people who watch this are not comic book creators, and furthermore, you don't know what you don't know. A lot of people are walking around without even basic knowledge of things because it's very uncomfortable to ask, right? So if you are an aspiring comic creator or somebody at the beginning of your career or somebody who's just never worked with publishers but has been around a long time, here's the most basic elements that you would need to know. In the U.S., there's 3 types of publishers. Work for hire, right? 3 types of arrangements, 3 types of deals that you could enter with a publisher. There's work for hire. That would be, the easiest examples would be Marvel and DC. There might be some type of royalty paid out for character creation, etc. But you don't own those characters. You don't own your stories. You signed a contract that states you forfeit your rights to that in exchange for the money that they hand you. This was the way things were done for a very long time. Then at the margins, you had some pioneers. There's nothing wrong with a work-for-hire deal. You simply have to know what you're getting into. That is a complete lack of control over the thing that you made. You do not steer that ship in any meaningful way. Typically, you do not have leverage of any type. You can get more money, but there's not typically very much latitude on your ownership. It's just not up for negotiation. The companies that do work for hire do not make their money by sharing it, you know? So that's one type of contract. That's one type of publisher. What that publisher does for you is bring an awful lot of capital, typically. If we're talking about Marvel and DC, there are other publishers. There's smaller publishers who do work for hire as well. They bring capital. They bring potentially marketing. They are, for many creators, they are seen as a stepping stone to greater independence. It's somewhat of an old school mentality to see them as the actual last stop on the train, but those people still exist. It's still the goal for some people to work for these companies, and that's what they want for their career. You know what you're getting, which is screwed. And I say that tongue in cheek because I don't think you can blame anybody for a deal you signed, even in extreme cases that I think that these publishers should relinquish control over properties that or stories that have made them incredible amounts of money. I still think that they should do what is right, but we have to be real. They're under no obligation to. So that's one type of publisher, one type of deal. Next up is your creator-owned, fully creator-owned. For that, you're talking about in the direct market, Image Comics. I don't know if there's a single other publisher in the direct market of any size that offers a wholly creator-owned deal. If you are casually into comics and just enjoyed the '90s boom, properties like Spawn resonate with you. You're familiar with those. Those came out of men who just kind of knew their worth and went to the publishers and said, "Hey, we're going to need more favorable terms." The publishers said, "Screw," and then these fellas went off and started their own company. Now, there's plenty of precedent for creator-owned work prior to this, but it fell into largely a self-publishing model. This is comics at its purest in some regards. So Image as a publisher curates its line. Everything that is curated is owned wholly by the people who make it. Image is getting what it amounts to a fee taken off the top of sales for single issues, and they are getting a percentage of your trade paperback sales, collection sales. So those things matter. This isn't a charity, but it is a very pure form of comicking that you're not going to get in the direct market unless you are a very serious self-starter entrepreneurial person who is publishing their own work. And then the third type of publisher, third type of deal is something that falls in between those two. This is a lot of the small publishers. The small publishers need a reason to exist. They need a means to make money. For many of them, that is an often misguided effort at selling things to Hollywood. To sell things to Hollywood, they need to own things. So when you enter a deal with some of these companies, you're talking about a percentage of your property being owned by that publisher. And within that, there are a ton of different arrangements. And some of those publishers will work with you. Some of them are much more boilerplate in terms of the details of the deal. But here's the way to look at it. They would like to sell your property to Hollywood. You own a percentage of it, but for film and television, they often will wholly oversee the delivery of your IP to whatever party is willing to pay. Other publishers in that same space are much more a partnership. My Black Mask work, nothing moves forward without my say-so. But those deals vary a great deal. And they're ideal for someone who needs the money to finish pages, who needs the money to get their work into the world. Also for someone who the ownership of their property, the secondary sale to other mediums is not critical to them. They don't feel the need to chart their own course or decide their destiny in terms of IP. They wanted to get something out into the world, and they did so. Maybe that's because you needed a calling card and you don't actually care about the card. It's a means to an end. Or because, frankly, you don't believe, and I don't mean this as an insult because there's often reason. You don't believe in the potential of that work to go any further anyway, so you don't mind giving up a percentage of what you believe will ultimately amount to zero, right? So Black Mask was, I'm going to use the word gracious, enough to publish a book from me and my art partner Paul called Nobody's in Control. It is not a difficult book, but there is not a single saleable element in the pitch. There is nothing elevator about it, and it is odd. It's genuinely odd. It's a high-quality book that is strange. I looked at that property, and I had no problem sharing a piece of it, because anybody who can sell that to Hollywood deserves a piece of it. Simply put, it is it's great. If it ever sells to Hollywood, it'll make a great whatever. But it's you have to have a vision for it to try to sell it. And I wish Black Mask the best in that. They probably have a rubber stamp from Paul and I because if you can get that made as anything, if you could get it made as a puppet show, it would be an achievement in some ways because you would need real buy-in from somebody who can really see what it is. So there's a couple drawbacks to this type of publisher. Obviously, not having control of your work, it could lead to frustration, but it should be said that if you don't know anybody that can help you move those properties to other mediums, whether that's video games, whatever, light novels, whatever. If you don't know anybody, then having somebody that at these publishers whose full-time job is to sell these properties to film or television, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's part of the equation that you should figure out. So a thing to consider, because if you go self-publishing or if you go with Image or you can find another wholly creator-owned publisher, and if your goal is to get a secondary source of income from flipping that IP to someplace else, which is not everybody's goal, you still need to know somebody who can do that for you. Your property existing is not a lottery ticket, a thing to consider. But the other factor is, should that company go under, should that publisher cease to exist or be sold to another entity, your book isn't just out of your control. It's completely unreachable by you. There's been many, many cases of small publishers being absorbed into larger companies or ended up in the holding companies, etc. And creators can't even get somebody on the phone, can't even find out who really now owns or 50% or more of their property. Obviously very frustrating and a thing to consider. There's benefits and drawbacks to all types of publishing. I have a manager that pushes things to Hollywood, so if that was the goal, it still would serve me personally best to, in most cases, publish through a wholly creator-owned enterprise like Image or self-publishing. Kickstarter. Let's say I'm writing a book that the upside potential of it is just not high in terms of sales. It is a thing that I think will have lasting value, that should exist in the world, and I'm proud of it. But being realistic, the sales will be low. In that circumstance, it is wiser to typically work with one of these small publishers that co-owns things with you, because you will get the capital to pay the artist, maybe put something in your pocket yourself, depending on that publisher. Most of the publishers are really thin on money, but you will be able to get this thing into the world and be proud of it, and there's still some potential for it to do other things, but in the comic shops, it was just never destined to be a blockbuster. If you believe you have a blockbuster on your hands, if you believe that you have something that is saleable, can work in the market, then a publisher like Image is, there's really no better deal that you're going to find. But there's a billion different types of books in the world, and the type of publisher that you choose or that chooses you, because a lot of times it's a stiff market, it's hard, you're not going to have a ton of options. Also, these publishers tailor themselves to fill niches now. That's because if they overlap too much, they cannibalize each other and they won't last very long. So not only are you limited by just sheer market forces, you're also limited by the curation and the interest of the individual publishers. So all things to consider. If you have any questions, you can leave them below and I'll try to answer them in greater detail in the future. Thank you.